Fool, on God first, he will answer you. Before you reach outward in fear, before you seek answers in the noise of the world, turn inward, because the source you seek is already within you. Call on God first, not as a distant force, but as the indwelling power of your own consciousness. The moment you acknowledge I am, you have already summoned the infinite. You are not waiting on heaven to open. Heaven waits on your recognition. When you assume the feeling of the answered prayer, you have already received. Your imagination is the voice of God, and when you speak through it with faith, the answer is sure. Call not in desperation, but in certainty, for to call is to claim, and what you claim in truth must come to pass. God dwells within your consciousness. When we speak of calling on God, most imagine a cry sent into the sky, a petition cast outward to some far-off being, but this is a misconception born of habit and tradition. The truth is far more intimate, far more empowering. God dwells within your own consciousness. The presence you seek is not separate from you. It is your awareness of being. The moment you say, I am, you have touched the divine. That sacred name, simple yet eternal, is the key to all power, all wisdom, and all answers. To call on God first is to awaken to your own true identity, the creative center of your world. You have never been separate from this power. From the beginning, it has moved through your breath, your thoughts, your visions. It is the still, small voice within, the voice of imagination, the birthplace of reality. Every image you hold with feeling, every assumption you persist in, is a call upon this presence. It is not a God of thunder, but a God of quiet conviction. Not a ruler outside, but a source within. You don't need to reach far. You only need to turn your attention inward. Consider this. Everything you've ever experienced, every person you've met, every event in your life has first passed through the filter of your own consciousness. You are not merely a participant in the drama of life. You are the projector. The world is your mirror, reflecting what you believe to be true about yourself. When you understand this, prayer ceases to be an act of pleading and becomes an act of recognition. You don't ask God to show up. You recognize that God is already here as your own I am. Calling on God first means putting your consciousness at the center of creation. For you act, for you speak, before you react, go within. Feel the presence of I am. This is the starting point of all transformation. You can dress it in different names: peace, love, abundance, healing, but at the root of it all is a single identity, your awareness. And this awareness is God. This truth is not about arrogance. It is about alignment. When you align with the truth that God and you are one in consciousness, you unlock the creative power of the universe. You no longer beg, you declare. You no longer hope, you know, and this knowing becomes the answer to your call. When you sit quietly and say within yourself, I am healed, I am free, I am guided, you are not lying to yourself. You are calling on the deepest truth of who you are. And in time, what you claim inwardly must reflect outwardly. But when the storm rises, when confusion surrounds you, when lack knocks on your door, do not panic. Do not chase after help in the world of effects. Call on God first and know what that truly means. Return to your center. Return to your I am. That is the only place the true answer ever comes from. Pride is assuming the feeling of the answer. Prayer is not words, it is not repetition, pleading, or long hours spent hoping to be heard. True prayer is an inner movement, an assumption. It is the art of stepping into the feeling that what you desire is already yours. It is not the act of asking, but of aligning. To pray effectively, you must enter the state of the wish fulfilled. You must see the end and feel it real. That is how you call on God, not with noise, but with silent certainty. When you assume the feeling of the answered prayer, you bypass all delay. You are no longer waiting for the condition to change. You are becoming the change in consciousness. And because your world reflects your inner state, it must yield to this new assumption. What you dare to feel inwardly as true will crystallize into form. The outer world bends not to your struggle, but to your state. This is the great secret. God answers by identity, not by request. When you assume the feeling of health, you are praying from the state of health. When you assume abundance, you are no longer in lack. You have crossed the invisible bridge, and you have done it not by force, but by imagination. The world may still look the same, but your consciousness has shifted. And that is the beginning of every miracle. To the one who understands this, prayer is not something reserved for moments of crisis. It becomes a way of life. Every moment you are praying, either deliberately or unconsciously, because every moment you are assuming something to be true about yourself and your world. The question is not whether your prayers are being answered. They always are. The question is, what are you praying? What are you assuming? If you live in fear, you are praying fear. If you dwell in lack, you are calling upon more lack. But if you dare to lift your inner eye and imagine from the end, from fulfillment, then your prayer becomes a creative act. You become the vessel through which the unseen becomes seen. That is the divine process. That is what it means to call on God with understanding. Close your eyes and ask not how will this happen, but instead, what would it feel like if it were already done? That feeling, that quiet confidence, that peace, that joy is the prayer. And the moment you feel it deeply, the answer is given. Not in the future, but in that instant. For the world is only a delayed echo of what has already taken place in the unseen realm of your consciousness. So let your prayer be bold. Do not pray from lack. Pray from fulfillment. Do not pray as a beggar. Pray as one who knows that their word does not return void. You are not calling on something far away. You are summoning the power that already dwells within, and it answers always to the one who dares to believe in the reality of their assumption. Your world reflects your inner assumptions. Look around you. The people you meet, the circumstances you face, the opportunities, or the lack thereof. They are not random. They are reflections. The world outside is a mirror, faithfully showing you the content of your own consciousness. It is not life that happens to you, but your inner state that gets projected outward and called life. What you deeply assume to be true of yourself, you will inevitably experience. This is not philosophy, it is law. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. If you live in the state of being unseen, overlooked, or unworthy, you will find the world confirming it at every turn. Not because the world is against you, but because it is obedient to your assumptions. And the moment you change your concept of self, the world responds, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically, but always faithfully. This is a hidden keys so few ever grasp. You do not change your world by fighting circumstances. You change your world by assuming a new identity. The world reshapes itself to fit the mold you hold within. As within, so without. The change is not outside first. It begins in consciousness. That is why we say, call on God first, because that call is a change of inner state, a movement of being, and that movement compels reality to shift. If you assume yourself to be abundant, the world will reveal paths to prosperity. If you assume yourself to be loved, you will see evidence of that love appear. These changes may not come overnight, but they must come, because the world cannot help but echo what you are being inwardly. The great error is waiting for something out there to change so you can feel differently. That is to live in reaction, not in creation. To rise, you must reverse the flow. Instead of reacting to the world, act from the state you desire to see. Walk through life as though what you seek has already found you. Speak from the end, feel from the end, live from the end. This is not pretending. This is prayer in action. This is faith with form. Understand this deeply. Every assumption you consistently hold is a seed planted in the field of your reality. It may take time to bloom, but it will. The law does not fail. You are always in conversation with your world, but it is a silent language spoken in tones of feeling, belief, and expectation. If you want the world to reflect something new, speak differently within yourself. Choose new thoughts, new beliefs, new inner conversations. So if the world appears unkind, look within and ask, what am I assuming? If doors seem closed, ask, what state am I living from? Your answer lies not in conditions, but in consciousness. Change your assumptions, and your world will show the evidence. This is the divine pattern. This is how the unseen becomes seen. Call on God first, and know that your assumptions are the call. The world will not resist them, it will reflect them. The first step is recognition, not desperation. Too often we call on God in moments of panic. We cry out in desperation when the storm is already upon us, when fear has taken root, and when our world appears to crumble beneath us. But true calling, powerful, creative, life-changing calling, does not begin in fear. It begins in recognition. Recognition that God is not someone to summon, but something to remember. The presence you are calling upon is not far. It is the very awareness in which the fear has arisen. Desperation, though honest, is reactive. It is a cry from a place of forgetting who you are. But recognition is the quiet power that precedes transformation. It is the moment you stop running and realize, I am not alone. I never was. The very breath in my body is evidence of divine life. To recognize God is to wake up to the truth of your being. It is to step outside the illusion of separation and return to the stillness of I am. Recognition shifts everything. It is the act of aligning with the higher state before the need arises. You don't wait for the storm to affirm the sun. You live in the awareness of the sun, even when clouds appear. In the same way, calling on God first means living from the inner knowing that the divine presence is always active, always available, always within you. You do not need to convince God to help you. You only need to remember that God is your own awareness, ready to express whatever you accept as true. This is why fear is so deceptive. It tells you that you are helpless, small, and at the mercy of external forces. It lures you into a frantic search for solutions out there when the true power to shift your world is within. When you recognize God first, before circumstances arise, you walk into life clothed in peace, clarity, and dominion. You meet challenges not as problems to survive, but as shadows to dissolve in the light of your awareness. True recognition is not passive. It is a deliberate act. It is the choice to remain grounded in the truth of your being when everything around you tempts you to forget. It is the discipline of inner stillness, the art of listening to the silence within before reacting to the noise without. And it is in this silence that answers are heard, not in the frenzy of panic. You might ask, what about recognize? Recognize first that your I am is the name of God, that your consciousness is the source of your reality, that the feeling you dwell in becomes the life you live. Recognize that you are never powerless, even when appearances say otherwise. Recognize that every need you have already exists in finished form in the unseen realm. You are not trying to make something happen. You are allowing what is already true to express through your awareness. Calling on God first is not an act of weakness. It is the boldest act of all. It is the refusal to place trust in appearances. It is saying, before I look to the world, I look within. Before I take a step, I establish my inner ground. Before I speak, I affirm the truth of who I am. This is the spiritual posture that turns mountains into dust. This is the inner poise that causes what the world calls miracles to unfold naturally. When you begin with recognition, you bypass delay. Desperation creates static, it clouds the signal. But recognition clears the path. It tunes you to the frequency of the answer before the question is even fully formed. This is why so many prayers go seemingly unanswered. They are saturated with doubt, fear, and pleading. But the prayer of recognition says, "Thank you, Father, that you have already heard me." It speaks from fulfillment, not from lack. It walks in faith, not in waiting. So let this be your habit, your rhythm, your inner discipline. Pause and remember. Don't wait for the world to shake you. Begin every day with a sacred act of recognition. Say within yourself, "I am the one I have been waiting for. I am peace. I am provision. I am guided." And let this quiet declaration become your foundation. When the world presses in, do not press back. Rise inwardly. Call on God first, not with trembling, but with certainty. And in that recognition, you will find not only comfort, but power. You will move through life not as one begging for light, but as one who is the light. Persistence in the assumption brings its manifestation. Once you have assumed the feeling of your desire fulfilled, once you have recognized the divine within and claimed your new state, there remains one final sacred task: to persist, not for a moment, not for a day, but until what is unseen becomes seen, until what is inwardly claimed takes outward form. This is the quiet, enduring work of creation. Persistence in the assumption. It is not about effort or strain. It is about faithfulness, remaining loyal to the vision, even when the world gives you every reason to doubt it. The greatest battle is not with people or circumstances. It is with the temptation to return to the old state, to doubt the truth of what you have already accepted in spirit. The world will test you. It will echo your past assumptions until your new inner stance becomes dominant. But the one who persists calmly and faithfully will always see their assumption crystallize into fact. This is not opinion, it is law. Persistence is not stubbornness, it is spiritual confidence. It is the unshakable inner knowing that what you have imagined is already yours, even if the evidence has not yet arrived. Imagine planting a seed in the soil. You do not dig it up every few hours to see if it has sprouted. You water it. You give it light. You protect the ground. Why? Because you trust the process. You know the seed must break through because that is the nature of seed. So it is with your assumptions. Your job is not to force them to manifest. Your job is to remain faithful to them as though they already had. Every time you return to the state of the wish fulfilled, you are watering your seed. Every time you feel gratitude for what has not yet appeared, you are pulling the invisible closer. Every time you refuse to react to outer conditions and instead rest in the feeling of already having, you are quickening the manifestation. It does not matter how long it takes. What matters is that you do not give up your assumption. To the faithful, delay is not denial. It is only the space where the seen must catch up with the unseen. Do not be discouraged if outer results seem slow or unchanged. The world is a mirror, but sometimes the reflection lags behind the gesture. Imagine lifting your arm in front of a slow-moving mirror. It will reflect it eventually, but if you doubt in the meantime and drop your arm, the mirror will reflect that instead. The world will always catch up to what you sustain within. The key is sustaining it. This is why many fail, not because they lack power, but because they lack persistence. They change their inner state like the wind shifts. One day they are rich in spirit, the next they feel poor in fear. One moment they believe in healing, the next they confess defeat. But creation is not found in fluctuation, it is found in stability. Steady inner vision, unwavering belief, a quiet, confident expectancy, these are the tools of the true creator. You must live from your assumption until it hardens into fact. Do not worry about how it will come. The how is not your concern. Your concern is the state. The world will arrange itself through people, places, timing, and events to reflect your inner truth. Your task is to walk in it now before any evidence arrives. That is what it means to live by faith and not by sight. And yes, there may be moments when doubt knocks. That is natural, but do not open the door. Return gently and firmly to your inner knowing. Remind yourself, this is already done. Say within, I saw it in my mind, I felt it in my heart, therefore it must be. This persistence is not about repetition for its own sake. It is about identity. When you truly become the one who has, the world must reflect that version of you. Reality cannot resist the one who refuses to shift from their inner conviction. So, call on God first and stay with him, not with lips but with consciousness, not with ritual but with unwavering feeling. Assume the state of the answer and persist in it, and when the winds of doubt blow, stand tall, not because of what you see, but because of what you know. You are not hoping, you are not trying, you are being. And to the one who persists, the promise is sure. The assumption will harden into fact. The unseen will become visible. The world will bow to the truth you have carried within. That is how creation works. That is how God answers.